Hello? My name is Damian Cole. And if you're here, it's because part of you senses there's something beyond the visible. Not everything that exists can be explained, and not everything that has been forgotten is truly gone. For years I've been collecting stories. Some were told to me by elders in towns where electricity arrives late. But there are tales that don't want to be told. They hide. They find you. And once they do, they don't let go. The Lady of the Mountain is one of those stories. She's not an invention. She's an echo, an ancient cry that still rumbles in the bones of the earth. She's not a witch, not a monster. She is the answer to greed, to destruction, to human arrogance. I'm just a messenger. And today, I choose to warn you. If you ever reach a place where birds don't sing, where the mist feels like it remembers, and where the earth breathes like a wounded beast, don't take another step. Don't touch anything. And above all, do not challenge her. Because she doesn't sleep. She waits. Welcome to the Portal of Stories.
They say that deep within Kaketa, where the jungle is so dense that sunlight barely touches the ground, there is a place where birds do not fly and paths fade away. A place where the earth breathes, where trees whisper warnings through the creak of their branches, and where every leaf seems to watch the intruder. A place cursed by men, but sacred to something older, something that still dwells there, among vines and mist. But to understand that presence, we must go back centuries. In pre-Hispanic times, the indigenous communities of what is now Colombia, such as the Pijao, the Muinan, and the Huitoto, held a deep respect for the jungle. To them, the jungle was not merely a place. It was a living entity, a perfect balance between spirits, plants, animals, and time. They would not cut down a tree without asking permission. They would not hunt without ritual. They believed in tutelary mothers, feminine spirits that protected the forest, the rivers, and the winds. One of those entities was the Mother of the Mountain. She did not have a single form. Sometimes she appeared as a woman, dressed in green, draped in ivy, walking through the mist. Other times, she was merely a giant shadow rising among the trees, or a whisper in the wind that caused greedy hunters to lose their way. It was said that where she stepped, the forest grew stronger, that her tears became dew, and that her fury, when provoked, could rot an entire harvest overnight. With the arrival of the colonizers, the stories changed in tone. The church could not allow the worship of ancient spirits, and so the Mother of the Mountain became something feared, a giant witch, a cursed sorceress, a demon of the forest. But the people never stopped speaking of her. They just lowered their voices. Over the centuries, her legend lived on through oral tradition. In the villages, peasants learned that one must not enter the forest without asking permission, that there were places where neither tools nor prayers worked. And if someone forgot, she would be the one to remind them. It was in one of those places that something happened, something no one wants to speak of aloud. El Mono Guerra was a lawless man. For years, he had been moving drugs across the southern border, smart, brutal, and completely disbelieving of anything that couldn't be killed with a bullet. He had heard that poppy fields were the new gold, more profitable than coca and easier to hide. Someone told him of a valley blanketed in mist, far from state control, off the radar, and avoided by all. They said the soil there was dark, rich, moist, perfect. But they also said that the place did not want masters. The Lady of the Mountain lives there, a peasant warned him as he filled the gas tank of the truck. If you rip out a root, she rips out a soul. Mono laughed. The kind of laugh that smells like gunpowder. You think I'm scared of a witch made of mud? On May 1st, they arrived. 5 trucks, 15 men, tools, weapons, gas canisters, and poppy seeds hidden in sacks. The place was even quieter than expected. No birds, no insects, no monkeys, just the distant murmur of the river and the thick, damp wind that made them feel as if the jungle itself was sweating. They plundered without pause. Chainsaws, machetes, fire. In 3 days, they built a camp, fumigated the soil, and marked the boundaries of their first crop with lime. Monoguera watched from a hammock, strung between 2 twisted trees. They looked like they had been burned decades ago, but were still alive. Their leaves trembled, even though the air was still. The first night, a young man disappeared. Chispa. His flashlight was found still lit, lying at the edge of the clearing. They thought he had run off in fear, but at dawn, they found him less than 100 meters away, buried up to his neck in mud, his eyes open and dry, roots wrapped around his throat like dead snakes. Mono ordered him buried in silence. It was an accident. The forest swallowed him because he was weak, he said coldly. By the second night, the men began to dream. Nightmares of branches rising like claws, of hot mud dragging them into the earth's throat, of eyes watching them from within the trees. One of them, El Flaco, woke up screaming and started biting his own fingers. He said he had seen a woman with a giant body, covered in roots, with eyes glowing like embers and a voice like stone. That she whispered to him through the fog, "You are sowing death. I shall sow your punishment." Mono locked him inside a tent and injected tranquilizers. "He's crazy," he muttered, but his men no longer looked at him the same. That very night, 2 guards deserted the camp in secret. One was found days later, barefoot, walking down a dirt road, murmuring in a language no one recognized. The other never returned. The mist thickened. Time lost meaning. It always seemed like dawn. Watches stopped working. Radios emitted a constant hum, as if something were trying to speak through them. One night, an automatic rifle exploded in its owner's hands. Inside the chamber, green fungi and dry roots had grown. No one could understand how. Mono decided then to set the forest on fire. "If this bitch wants to play the supernatural, we'll show her who's boss," he shouted. They poured gasoline around the perimeter and readied the torches. But when they tried to light the first one, the flame wouldn't catch. The fire recoiled, as if the air itself refused to burn. Then the sky darkened unnaturally. Not like night, but like a living shadow. And the forest screamed. It was a deep, guttural sound, impossible to describe. It came from no animal. It was the ground itself vibrating. The trees groaned. Vines fell like whips from the canopy. The mud began to boil. And from the mist, she emerged. She had the shape of a woman, but she was not human. Over 3 meters tall. Her body a fusion of living roots, mud, moss, and leaves. Her hair was made of vines dragged by the wind, and from her back sprouted twisted branches like wings. Where she stepped, the earth bloomed stronger. Where she looked, men fell. Mono fired. His bullet never left the chamber. The gun crumbled in his hand, eaten away by moisture. He tried to run, but the mud trapped his feet. He watched as his men were dragged underground, devoured by roots, smothered by fungi growing over their faces. They screamed. No one answered. Only she kept walking. She did not speak. She did not shout. She simply watched, and the jungle obeyed. By dawn, there was nothing left of the camp. No tent. No footprints. Only a clearing covered in crimson flowers, and in the center, a tree that had not been there before. Black, with rough bark. Its leaves dripping a thick, dark fluid like old blood. They say the tree is still there, that if you get too close, you can hear voices in its trunk. Voices that beg, that cry, that curse. Some say that once a year, the mist descends from the mountain to the river, searching for anyone bold enough to return. Because she is still there. Because the jungle does not forgive. And because the Lady of the Mountain does not sleep, she waits. From this corner, where history and mystery embrace, thank you for crossing with us through the portal of stories.
El Portal de las Historias presentó un documental original.